Once again, today's question, reparations.
So, Ricky.
Yes
Ricky.
or no. Also, you can follow Earl on Facebook. He's on Facebook Live right now, right this very second. You can pose your opinion, you can ask him a question, and he will answer you in a heartbeat of a second. You are listening to the Hutchinson Report Town Hall. The air will be right back.
It is estimated that the United States alone benefited from a total of 222,505,049 hours of forced labor, i.e. slavery, between 1619 and the abolition of slavery, formal slavery. Some may doubt that, how much it's been abolished. Another
Right.
story. The abolition of slavery in 1865, valued at the U.S. minimum wage with a modest rate of interest, that is worth $97 trillion. I didn't say million. I did not say billion. You heard me. $97 trillion today. Keep in mind, the total U.S. federal budget for fiscal year 2018 was $4.1 trillion. All right. Now, the estimate that the labor of slaves was worth at least $5.9 trillion and perhaps as much as $14.2 trillion. By the way, that's in 2009 dollars. 10 years ago, probably double that now, 2019. All right, what are we saying? We're saying that trillions of dollars over a period of centuries, not years, not decades, but centuries accumulated. We can go on and talk about building the structure, the infrastructure of America based on slave labor. That's been well documented. We can talk about all of the benefits of that. That's been well documented. Now, opponents say this. Here's what they say. And by the way, we know there's a bill now. John Conyers introduced it every year for decades, a committee to study the feasibility of reparations. We also know that Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, I don't know about Biden. Biden, I'm sure, will weigh in one way or the other. We'll see. Bernie has weighed in. He's come around. Julian Castro, they've all come out and they've endorsed the committee to study the feasibility of reparations. I think we're saying Democrats have put this issue, which has been a marginal issue, firmly, squarely on the national public policy agenda. It's on the plate. It's there for discussion. Now, having said that, there are opponents, many opponents. Opponents of reparations argue that slaves are dead. You were not a slave, A.H. Hoffman. Your mother was not a slave. Your father was not a slave. Your grandmother. Perhaps your great-grandmother, great-grandfather. I don't know. There were a lot of free blacks, too. You know, all blacks were not slaves. You know that. All right. All slaves are dead. No white person living today owns slaves, or that all the immigrants that have come to America since the Civil War don't have anything to do with slavery. Also, not all black people living in America today are descendants of slaves. An example, Barack Obama. So having said that, then there's many points about can't happen, won't happen, shouldn't happen, division, so on and so forth, the cost, all the things that we have heard many arguments against. There are many arguments for. All right, on the Hutchinson Report Town Hall, the air today, we're putting the issue on the table. Much more about this as we go on. We roll with the show. Yes or no? Are the Democrats sincere? Is this going to be an issue that can be discussed? Like I said, I wasn't being facetious, Leroy, when I said Paducah, Iowa. I was not being facetious when I said Steubenville, Ohio. I was not being facetious when I said Ucross, Wisconsin. Can you take the issue of reparations, which is seen as a quote-unquote black issue, can you take it out into the heartland of America? Can you talk to rural? Can you talk to blue collar? Can you talk to less educated folk in the heartland? And can you get them to listen to that? Of course, it's easy to go in the inner city Detroit, inner city LA, and talk about reparations all day because everybody's going to agree. That's not what I said. Can you take it out? Did you hear what I said? Steubenville, Ohio, blue collar, less educated, white male and female, rural workers, and not get booed off the stage and run out of town. Can you do that? 818 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK. Ricky Woodson, that's Bob Woodson, conservative African-American against reparations, saying, look, it's divisive, it's insulting, you don't need to talk about that, let's move on. We got our first-time caller, Pedro Baez. We're going to have to move fast this morning. We got a lot of calls. Pedro Baez, go right ahead.
I know you do, and you'll be hearing from some of the people that I reached out to.
Very good.
Absolutely, reparations has been literally on the books, not since 1989, when John Conyers proposed H.R. 40, the Commission to Study Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act. But when you read the 13th Amendment, and that didn't come up 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction, unquote. So in other words, it was already put into the 13th Amendment. It was said we have to do something about what occurred. And it's been going on and on and on.
All right, Pedro Baez, let me stop you. Let me stop you here. I got a quick question for you, and then we got to move on. Give me one specific thing. If the commission came back, H.R. 40, and by the way, now it's been taken up by Texas Democrat, Sheila Jackson Lee, we invited her on. We know she's listening. We know all the Democratic candidates. They've got their spies. They've got their spotters. They're all listening. Pedro Baez. And I'm going to ask every caller this that's pro-reparations. Let's skip the rhetoric on this. If you were sitting there, you're the reparations czar. You said, okay, we got a few $1 trillion to spread around. Give me just one thing that you would use the money as a reparations vehicle to subsidize. Just one thing. What would that be?
Well, what we've talked about for years and years. Decent housing.
All right.
Decent housing. We need decent housing. Every single person who lives in this country has a right to live in very decent housing.
Massive subsidies there. Got it. Okay, Pedro, got to move on. We got a full bank of calls.
All
Thanks
right,
again.
take care.
All right, Angela, I'm going to take Keith now. Keith has been waiting. Keith is against reparations. He is anti-reparations. I want to hear his... What are you looking at me like that for, Ricky? God, that look on his face.
Well, look, some stuff here, so I'm ready.
Angela and Ricky, look, I mean, I'm not the man's father. I'm not his mother. I'm not his
Thank
grandmother.
God. No.
I can't tell him what to say and how to think. Keith, are you there? I know you're against reparations. Give me very concisely.
We're ready for you, Keith.
Keith, give me very...
I love you guys.
I know you do, and we love you too. You're the guy that we
Come
love.
on, Keith.
You're the guy that we hate to love and love to hate. We got that. All right, Keith.
Angela, I got a crush.
Yeah. Okay, all right, we'll get to that. We'll get to that later. But Keith, I got a question for you. Keith, I got a question. All right, we know already. You don't have to go into any long who shot John. We know that you oppose reparations. Can you give me just one solid reason why you oppose it?
All right. It's against the laws of nature. And I'll say it this way. Here's why I'll...
Huh? Wait, what?
No, I knew you'd say
Keith,
that.
I'm mad at you right now. Our love affair is like over right now.
Angela, let's hear him out. Hear him
Okay.
out.
You are fake news.
The laws of nature, going back to the scripture, the Bible. I know she doesn't like that, but I'm going to have to say, the Bible says this in Ezekiel, and this is chapter 18, and I'm not going to read all of it, but just some of it. It says that the person who sins is the one who will die. The child will not be punished for the parent's sins, and the parent will not be punished for the child's sin.
Oh, I see where you're going. I see where he's going.
Righteous
I do.
people will be rewarded for their own righteous behavior.
Got it.
And wicked people will be punished for their own wickedness.
All right, so Keith.
So that's the way it goes.
All right, so basically, let me translate that. Essentially, you're saying that those that committed the crimes, they have been punished and will continue to be punished. Do not continue to punish for the sins of the fathers, the sons, the grandsons, the daughters, the granddaughters, the great-granddaughters. That is against nature. It doesn't work. That's what I'm reading in what you're saying. Is that correct, Keith? Are you there?
Yes, sir. You got it.
All right. Can we move on then, Keith? I got it. Thanks again. All right, we got a caller. Bill, Lake Elsinore, line 3. Go right ahead. Bill?
Good morning,
morning, Dr. Hutchinson.
Yes, sir. How are you?
Angie, AH. It's great to hear her.
Hey, thank you.
Absolutely. Put your money where your mouth is, America. We'll worry about the details later, but absolutely, and the money will come from, we even put a bond issue. Those who want to contribute may contribute. I would definitely contribute, being, from the European side of the sea. And yes, absolutely, put your money where your mouth is. In fact, pose this question to the Trumpster and see him watch him melt down in front of everybody.
All right, then, we appreciate that. But, I think there is a thing that keeps coming up, though, that we can't tap dance around. And Leroy, we hear this all the time, Angela, Ricky, Vino, and Oliver. Look, my grandfather came to America in 1920. 70 years after the end of slavery. Why are you holding me hostage? Why are you saying that any of my money in any way, shape, or form should come out? We had nothing to do with that. There are no slaves that are alive today. They're long gone. Then there's another argument that's been used. Some will say, wait a minute, wasn't a civil war fought? Leroy, if my memory serves me correct, hundreds of thousands of white men died fighting in the Civil War. Ostensibly, yeah, I know, to keep the Union together, but at the end of the day, everybody knows, historians now are in general agreement, it was about slavery. The argument made that hundreds of thousands of whites gave their lives to end slavery, the injustice of that in the Civil War. Why should we have to pay? So just think about that. These are some of the counter arguments, and there are going to be many others. Carson, go right ahead, line 4. Carlos?
Hi, yeah, very quick. I'm running out of, my cell phone's running down. So, very quick. We live in a multicultural, multi-ethnic nation. The moment you give reparations to one group, you got to give it to all the others.
And that's another argument, too, another counter argument. Where does it end? All right, Carlos. Okay, his phone is running down. That's battery. I think he ran out, too. All right, you heard that, A.H. Hoffman. Carlos says, wait a minute, where does it end? I think I heard you say kind of in jest, the Cameroons, right? I say Polynesia. Well, I guess they could make a case, too, at some point. When you talk about Hawaii and Samoa, there was discrimination there, colonization there. What about that? A lot of money was made and being made in Hawaii and Samoa, tourism, the economy, and other things. Should they get reparations? Where does it end? I mean, so again, another counter argument. And toward the end, we got to address those counter arguments. They're going to keep coming, particularly now. You're right on point. Chuck Collins, he's an author. He's a program director at the Institute for Policy Studies. This is what he said on your point. Quote, it could include, it being reparations, some form, it could include free tuition and financial support at universities, colleges, trade schools for first-generation college students to do exactly what you said, Hans. Not a bad thought. Not a bad thought. Hans, we love you as a first-time caller. Be a second-time caller. All right, let's keep moving because we're literally jammed, Leroy. Another first time. Well, let's see. We didn't get. Lynette, you've been very patient. Line 1. Go right ahead, Lynette. Lynette?
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Happy Holy Week to all.
Yes. You know what they say. He has risen. More on that later.
Yes, he has. Jesus is Lord. Well, I wanted to bring up the fact that we're going to probably need a truth and reconciliation kind of a situation here in this America, because we live in the United States of amnesia and denial, and here it is, 400 years anniversary of the first slave ship coming to Jamestown, okay, our ancestors. And meanwhile, we never talk about the deaths of millions of our ancestors coming over here in the Middle Passage that were packed in ships like sardines, and
by the way, Lynette, you know the sharks actually followed those ships? Did you know that? The sharks followed the slave ships. You know why? Because they knew they would toss bodies over. They had a free meal. They knew that.
You know what I'm saying? There's no statute of limitation on death of people, and all of these ships that were insured by these insurance groups and slaves were insured, like Aetna and all these companies, and then we have not gotten to the fact that, after Reconstruction, the slave owners got reparations for their troubles. They got money. And then, there was still de facto slavery going on with the black codes, Jim Crow segregation, and right now mass incarceration, the new Jim Crow, and racism. So we really have to have a real come-to-Jesus type of meeting about this. I mean, this is going to really take some honesty, some real thought forensically. And I like what all the candidates are saying about what they want to do, including Williamson, who want to start a $100 billion fund.
That's Democratic presidential candidate Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, I like that, and that's a down payment because, like you said, this is going to be like trillions of dollars, and really, when you think about it, our intellectual property value have not even been assessed, and how we're over.
All right, well, Lynette, let me stop you here because Lynette, let me stop you. We got so many calls. I got to keep moving. Point well taken. Thanks again, Lynette. By the way, A.H. Hoffman, she mentioned 1619 Jamestown. I'm sorry, Jamestown. This is for the quadricentennial of the first slave officially landing on American shores, 2019. Georgetown University, are you aware of this? The students there, they didn't wait. They took matters in their own hands. They made a proposal to assess 27.
I recommend that we pass a bill like Conyers, create a group of wise men and women, come up with all the possibilities, limit it to 10, have a national referendum, put it to bed once and for all.
Whoa, okay, I like that. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, thanks again. That point well taken, Warren. I'm not sure with the national referendum where that would go. I'm not sure once you get out into Ohio, once you get out into Wisconsin, not to mention, the South and the West. I'm not sure about that referendum, but I got it. Point well taken. That is the essence of democracy. Thanks again. All right, Gene, L.A., go right ahead. Line 8. Gene?
Reparations, yes, cut the check immediately.
Cut the check immediately.
Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye.
I love that. You know what, Leroy? I love it when people, boom, give me a sound bite, but that makes sense. All right, reparations. It's going to be an ongoing debate, ongoing topic of discussion. It's not going to go away, nor should it. I think it's good to have and healthy to have that debate. Looking at the past, looking at the present. I just want to end very quickly on one final thing here. If I can find it, people say slavery was so long ago, or my family didn't own slaves. But the key thing to understand is that the unpaid labor of millions and the legacy of slavery, Jim Crow laws, discrimination in mortgage lending, and a race-based system of mass incarceration created uncompensated wealth for individuals in white society as a whole. Immigrants with European heritage directly and indirectly benefited from this system of white supremacy. The past is very much in the present. A.H. Hoffman, he has risen. You know what I think. You know where I'll be tonight. All right, Leroy, thank you very much. Ricky, A.H. Hoffman, Oliver, Vino, till next week.